the character is actually dragging its feet. You could see it's sliding a bit. You could see the feet sliding a bit out of frame, but at frame 48 is actually perfect. But you can see how hectic it is to actually find out which frame it is that is going to be perfect for the work cycle. Basically, we've been teaching work cycle for a long time, and most people do great work cycles, frame by frame work cycles that don't slide. But when you're using Moho Studio, the question is, how do you create work cycles that don't slide? So we all have different methods. So I'll be showing you a couple of methods today, and I hope you enjoy this episode. So if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel, and also share and turn on the bell notification so that you get my latest videos whenever I share. So let's get this started. This is just a generic leg I just created real quickly, and I want to show you how to do work cycle. So we will start from the basics anyways. So um, pay full attention. We all probably by now understand how to create work cycles. Like this is a simple work cycle. We know we create the first pose here, and this will be our first pose, and we hit Ctrl F for this one so that we add all the necessary keyframes, and we can copy all this, Ctrl C, and we jump to frame 24. Since we are working on 24 frames, Ctrl C, Ctrl V. Let me copy that again. Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So we'll put that same frame here, and at frame 12, we will now switch the legs. So one of the things I learned recently is that while you switch the legs, is wise to turn on your onion skin so that you get a balance of how the legs should go, because your legs and your hands are not supposed to, overpass themselves, because when you are walking, you are supposed to things are supposed to be fairly equal in a random manner. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So what I will do here is I'll delete this and I'll turn on my keyframe. So our keyframe is now here. Then I'll bring this my keyframe key to this first place here. So when I'm switching the legs, I'll now make the legs be at the similar position. So the person doesn't overwork and rather or do a lesser work. Does that make sense? All right. So I will now shift the legs. Now you can see what I'm doing, shifting the legs like this, and I'll shift the bone. So now I will align it with this. This is the beautiful thing about Moho Studio. So we can properly align the legs so we have something similar while the leg switches, right? Not 100% perfect, but at least something close to while the leg switches. All right. So we have this. So when we take a look at this from here, I'll turn off the onion skin right now, and we could see that the leg is actually switching. So right now, but what you see right here, you can see the leg dragging on this animation, right? So when we get to frame 12 here, the leg stretches and the leg switches back. So right now we'll go to frame 6. This is whatever I'm showing you right now. This is what everybody knows, I think, but I'm doing this for the beginners that are here with us also. So please be patient. So what we'll do now is at frame 6, we will bend the left leg, and we'll test it out, and you can see that's the wrong leg I'm actually bending. So I will bend the leg at the front. Let me turn off the onion skin properly. So at frame 6 now, I'll bend this leg at the front, and I will straighten out this leg here. Make sure the leg is straightened out like this. So I'll bend this so that the leg walks forward like this. All right. Now almost everybody knows this, I am guessing so, but if you don't know, pay full attention and see how I am creating this. Then now we jump to frame 18. We'll do the same thing to the back leg. So while we're doing the same thing to the back leg, I can turn on the onion skin so that we'll copy exactly what had happened initially, right? So this red lines you see here, we'll try to imitate what happened initially. So you could see this leg is well straight here. So I will straighten this out and try to balance it out the with the leg. So while trying to balance it out, we could see that the body of the leg is actually wrapping because I didn't really fix the actions there properly. But it's still okay. We have this. I think this we could fix later. Want to fix. So real quickly, we have a work cycle. Now, one thing you will notice with this work cycle is that the work cycle, it looks good already. And but if you notice from here to 6, this is where the foot is totally flat on the ground. But when it gets here, the foot is now a bit off the ground. When it gets here, the foot is totally off the ground. But you want the foot to always be on the ground. So whenever you are creating a sliding walk cycle like this, you consider these things before you, just to make your animation more professional anyway. So maybe at frame 9 here, what we'll do is we'll make sure that we'll adjust the feet here and make sure the feet is basically on ground. So when we are walking, so the leg is always on the ground before it switches to this frame 12, where it's now um, supposed to be off the ground, right? Then it goes to frame 18. 18, same thing. Maybe at frame 21, we will make sure the foot is basically on ground, and we may stretch the leg also. So we'll do the same thing to um, frame 9. So let's stretch the leg. So make sure that the foot is on ground and frame 9. Then we have this before it switches to the final shot, which is this actually. So that is the way we have laid it out. But you would also say the feet is actually off the line on the ground. But this is what we created initially. I didn't really pay much attention to that because this is not supposed to be happening. But I can redo all this from start again so that you get my point. But you get what I'm saying. But now if you look at it, you will notice that the foot is now fully on the ground, most importantly. And another thing that you can actually do here is while before this leg touches the ground, you would notice how it drags first. So, but at this point, your leg doesn't just bend like this. Your leg actually stays up like this before it touches the ground, right? So that is what you would consider before your leg lands on the ground. So I just adjusted that leg. So when this one comes up again around this point, so I can make the leg like this so that it hits the ground properly. All right. And another thing you can go ahead and keep adjusting till you get like the perfect walk per se, you know, before you add a cycle to the walk. But this is how you create a sliding walk for your animation. But one thing you need to have in mind is that before you now add your circle, you could go ahead and add your circle. But if you have a full character, it is wise to, add keyframes to all these other places you have adjusted so that whenever you add your circle interpolation, it all adds up to everything and no part is missing. So we'll come here and add our circle to our animation and we have this. So you could actually feel like the leg is actually hitting the ground while the character walks because you could actually see the full length of the leg on the ground while the character walks, which is really helpful for you to, make a really good animation. But one of the ways now you could actually make this character walk through the screen. Before we get to that, I hope this is helpful and you understand what I just described and how to create this type of walk cycle. Most animators, the first thing they will do if they want to create a walk cycle while they have circled, interpolated the animation already, what they will just do is on frame 1, they would go to their transform tool and hit the transform tool here and add other keyframes that is necessary. When you come down here, you could see your interpolation, your rotation, and so on, and maybe even a scale if you want. You could see the scale has appeared here. Then what they will do is they will drag the character across the screen, which is fairly okay also. So let's move to 96 per se and maybe drag the character out of the screen. So what we'll have is this. So you could see, but the character is actually dragging itself through the screen. So what we'll do right here is he will hit the linear to make um, the character move immediately while the animation starts and not ease in or ease out in any way. All right. Let me turn off the onion skin. So you could see the character is walking through the screen. But if you notice, the character is actually dragging itself through the screen actually. So we'll now start going ahead to, adjust this keyframe to make sure it looks perfect when it starts walking, etc. So you could keep on adjusting how fast and how slow your character walks out of frame. Now this is perfect. This particular one is perfect. All right, so you could see from here, the character is actually walking out of frame, but at frame 72, the character is actually dragging its feet. You could see it's sliding a bit out of the frame. Let's play that again. You can see the feet sliding a bit out of frame, but at frame 48 is actually perfect. But you can see how hectic it is to actually find out which frame it is that is going to be perfect for the work cycle. I actually used to do this until I came across this other method I want to show you. Another way for you to do a walk across the screen to make your life much more easier is while you've created the walk like this, everything you've seen I've done like this, what you have to do is you create a new folder. Let's go to frame 0. You create a new folder, you group. I'm grouping with selection right now. So you could see this leg is now inside this folder and you can name it whatever you want. So maybe we'll just name it walk. All right. So what you will do now here is on the folder itself, not on the leg. So let me just turn everything off. On the folder itself, what we'll do is we'll take our origin tool and make sure that it's centralized with the whole body, not just the leg. And we'll now we'll add a keyframe, a motion keyframe to this. So what we'll do is that we'll turn on our onion skin and make sure that we turn it on the first frame, right? Then we remember that our walk cycle started with frame 12. That's where there is a cross section, isn't it? So what we'll do is that at frame 12, we will shift, we will move our character. So it could either, if you notice, the front of this onion skin is the end of the onion skin is matching with the end of this foot and the front like this, right? So we'll do that at frame 12 and we'll go to frame 24 and make sure our onion skin is also on frame 12. We'll turn off the first one, right? Then we'll go to frame 24. Put your onion skin on frame 12, all right? Then we'll now hold shift again and drag and repeat the same process. All right. So you could use the front toes to measure, or you use the back foot to measure and make it equal whichever way you think you can. While you have done that, what you now have to do is, well, if we play this, you would see that the character is actually walking forward. And you could see the walk is actually more natural than almost like you adjusted it to frame 48, which you saw we did, is much more natural and easy. So what you will now do right now is, if you want the walk cycle to continue, you will circle the interpolation. So you go to circle, and the next thing you will do is you can't leave it on absolute, because if you leave it on absolute, it will keep repeating itself and it keeps jumping back like this. So what you want to do is you go to additive cycle. So when you put it in additive cycle, it walks across the screen, excuse me, with ease. Let's go. So you can see your character is actually walking across the screen with a little bit of slide though, not really perfect. But now when you do this, it all depends on how perfect your slide here is actually, and you must take note of each frame that you have put here. I hope this is understandable and helpful to you. So you can actually make it very, very, very perfect as you want. Okay. So when it gets to frame 24, it repeats like that, like that, like that. So that's how to create a walk cycle without sliding so much on the screen. So if you want to make a much more perfect work cycle that looks like a frame by frame animation, how do you create it? So let's create a work cycle that looks and feels like a frame by frame work cycle in Moho Studio. Okay, let's get it started. First of all, we want to make sure that our feet is well planted on the ground, right? So our feet is well planted on the ground. Look at this one, is a bit out. All right. That's one thing you should make sure of. Understand your foundations. So the first thing we'll do here is, just like the initial one, we will create our first action, what we want to see. Okay. So we'll be creating our first action, right? So let's don't make the same mistake we did initially. Let's make sure that the feet is actually on the ground, right? So let's stretch this one out a bit and something like this. All right. So we have our first frame. So we'll be using the onion skin mainly for this to make it easier for us. Just like what I showed you initially, that is what we will be doing. But this time we'll be doing it without the folder. So now we have our first keyframe. So I will add a keyframe to that, and we will move to frame 12. All right, and we will now switch the legs. Now in switching the legs, we'll turn on our keyframe so that we can do the same thing I showed you initially. So what we'll do now is now we'll shift the leg forward and drag this one back, trying to match the positioning of the the legs. Okay, so we'll just try to match it. It mustn't be perfect, but let's match it so that we know where the legs are placed, so that we don't have our legs walking unequally. I hope that is correct. So we now have this, and this leg goes here also, and we now have something like this. Drop it and make sure that the leg is actually touching the ground. All right. So what is supposed to happen is that the space in between the legs are supposed to be somewhat equal per se. But let's just go with what we have right now because of the rig. So the leg is supposed to touch the ground, and we have it at this height per se. All right, so we have this. So the next thing we will do is we'll hit Control A to highlight all the bones in the body plus the legs. Then we'll come to our um, transform bone tool here and hold Shift, click on any part of it and drag it to the front, and make sure the end of the foot and the tip of the foot are equal with the initial switch, and we'll leave it there. When we take it back, you will see that the leg moves forward, right? So we are creating the walk cycle as if it's frame by frame. So the next thing we'll do is that we'll turn off this other frame and put at frame 24. One most important thing you must do is make sure that your frame 1 and frame 24 are exactly the same. So we will try to copy out frame 1 and paste at frame 24 or 25, depending on what you are doing. So you can see now, while we paste it, the character went back to frame 1. So the next thing we'll do is we'll put our keyframe at frame 12, because that is where we're actually starting from. And since the whole character is highlighted, we will drag to frame 24 and make sure that the tip of the toe and the end of the toe are equal. So when we now play this now, you see your character actually walking forward. Let me take that back so you see it properly. Boom. Now you have your character actually walking forward. So the next thing for you to do is now put your in-betweens. Now your in-betweens, you can go ahead and adjust it as much as you want to make it feel and look like a walk cycle. I don't want this to be so much of a long video, but I will do my best. So right now we will bend, take our transform tool, bend this leg a bit, right? We will take it back. I don't want it to be too much. The feet is actually too long for the legs. So what we'll do is we'll probably stretch this one out like this. Control Z to undo that. So I'll probably just bring the leg down to make sure that the leg is actually fit on the ground. Make sure your leg is actually flat on the ground. So this is our first pose, and just like how we did initially, I'll put my keyframe here and I'll go to frame 18 so that we can copy exactly similar to what we have here. So at frame 18, so let me see if the leg is right. Okay, it's correct. So at frame 18, I'll turn off this one. Then we are dealing with the second leg, right? Then I will switch this and try to imitate the leg. You could see that the leg is actually almost touching the heel here. So we'll just try to imitate that and bring this legs, make this leg straight. Control Z to undo that. Yeah. Hold Shift and make the leg straight and flat on the ground. I think this works. And this one is more of something like this. Let me bring it to the back. You could see the edge here, and we have something like this. right? So if I turn the onion skin off, when we get to the back, you see the leg. All right. So you can see now the character is actually walking as if we have done like a frame by frame. So I play that smoothly now. So you could see this is looking much more better than what we did initially, and the leg is not actually sliding. So what we'll do right now is that we'll go into the animation just like what we did and adjust the feet. So we could see the feet right here is going off the ground at this point. So what we will do at this point is stretch out the leg. Control Z. Let's hold Shift. Stretch out the leg, and make sure that your feet is well balanced on the ground. So what we could do here, since the feet is a bit above the ground, we can come to our middle bone here and push it down a bit, just a little, not so much. Control Z to undo that. Push it down a bit so that we can be able to adjust the feet at this point. Then stretch it, then stretch this one. So we have our feet fully planted on the ground. So when it works like this, you see the feet. Take note of this feet right here. The feet is fully planted on the ground before it switches to this next one. So we can come to frame 18 now and make similar adjustments. So in order to consider the height of the leg, because we adjusted this bone here, so it is most important that we consider the height and the reduction, whatever is happening here. So whatever is happening at one side should be 99% similar to what is happening at the other side, something like that. Though we know we humans are not 100% perfect. So what we will do is that we will highlight this bone here and come down to this point. Since this bone here, we shifted it, we will click on this point here, Control C and Control V it here. When we post it at V, you could see it drags out. So what we'll do is Control Z and copy this, and we'll go to Edit and Paste Relative. All right. So when we paste relative, it pastes this particular bone here without telling the computer that it needs to go back to this frame like this. So we'll paste it there because we want things to be equal, and we will now drag the leg a bit and adjust it. And we are still having the same thing. So what we'll do is that we'll go ahead and hold Shift, push the leg down a bit, just a bit, to be able to drag this down to be balanced on the ground, right? So I hope that looks good and I hope it works. So let's see. Good, good. The leg is still shaking, still needs a bit of adjustment, but I think you guys get the idea. It may take me a little while to adjust, but you can see how the character is now walking across the screen with ease, as if it's a frame by frame animation. It's not 100% perfect. Please don't judge me. But this is the idea, and I hope you're able to use it and make good adjustments and create, better animation than what you see I'm creating right here. Then we can go ahead at frame 6 and go ahead and adjust the legs and do whatever else we want, add other type of animation to it, but I think this one is okay for now. So the next thing for us to do is go to frame 6 and add keyframes, hitting control F at this point, 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 control F, and we have all that keyframes in. Then we highlight the end frame and go to smooth and circle, and when we go to circle, we hit additive circle because that's what will make it work perfectly well. So when we play this, our character keeps walking across the screen without having any issues. We could see it working perfectly well as if it's a frame by frame animation. And let me increase the green so we could see how the character keeps walking continuously until I stop it, or until the frame elapse. That's when the character will stop actually walking. So we have our character walking pop 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 pop, and it keeps going until it finishes. So that is how you create um, a walk like frame by frame animation in Moho Studio. I hope this makes sense and it helps you. And shout out to my friend who actually taught me this, and I'm very grateful to him. And so that whenever you're creating animation for a studio or whatever thing you are doing, this can be really helpful. And knowledge like this can really make your animation game really good. I remember I had an experience some time back when I was supposed to create like a frame by frame like animation, and I'm not so good at frame by frame. And I wish I had this knowledge at that time. It would have come in very handy. So I'll see you in the next video as I teach you something really amazing and something that I just recently learned. So do make sure you subscribe and do check out the link below and check out the courses and check out the free stuff and check out everything I put there down in the link, and support your boy, support the channel, and let's keep making great things happen. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.